We were halfway over the clouds when it hit me how good the idea felt. Not just good, right? Like finally doing something that reminded all of us we were still a family, still connected. My son was snoring against the airplane window with his headphones tilted halfway off his ears, and my daughter was humming some made-up tune over her apple juice, kicking her little sneakers against the seat. I watched them, feeling something light flicker in my chest. It had been a while since that happened. Since I felt like I was doing something right. I'd been planning it for a week, kept it quiet, booked everything under my name, made up a fake cousin's wedding to explain to my coworkers why I was suddenly skipping town. My wife had no clue. She thought we were back home, carrying on with normal life while she handled business in Chicago. But that was the point. She didn't know. I wanted her surprised. I wanted her to feel what I'd been feeling lately, that ache of missing someone you love followed by the rush of seeing them again. I didn't want to text her, I didn't want to call. I wanted to knock on her hotel room with the kids holding flowers and see her jaw drop. I wanted to remind her who we were. We touched down, grabbed our bags, hopped into a cab. Everything was smooth. Perfect even. Until we reached the hotel. I stepped up to the front desk, still grinning like some idiot with a Valentine's Day card in my back pocket. "Hi. I'm looking for a guest staying here, Danielle Morgan." She checked in Monday. The woman behind the desk blinked at me. "I'm sorry, could you spell that?" I did. Twice. She typed. Looked up. Typed again. Then again. "I don't have anyone by that name currently checked in. Are you sure about the date?" My stomach didn't drop. It twisted. I told her I was sure. I showed her the text where Danielle mentioned the exact hotel name. The receptionist looked at it, then gave me this polite little shrug that made me want to scream. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't have anyone here under that name." My daughter tugged my hand and asked if we were going to surprise Mommy soon. I said yes without breathing. I stepped aside, pulled out my phone, and dialed my wife. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. No ring. Just that flat robotic voice saying she couldn't come to the phone. She always picked up for the kids. Always. Even during meetings, she'd answer on speaker and mouth "Hi, baby" with a smile. This silence wasn't just unusual. It was wrong. I texted her. "Hey, we're here. Call me." No response. I messaged her assistant. We'd exchanged maybe 3 words total in the last 2 years, and I didn't even like the woman. But I needed to know what was going on. I told her I was at the hotel. That Danielle wasn't checked in. That I couldn't reach her. It took 5 minutes to get a reply. "She's not in Chicago." 4 words. That's it. I stared at them so long I forgot my kids were asking why we hadn't gone inside yet. Called her. The assistant. She didn't answer. Then texted back a minute later. "She's in Miami." Miami. I stared at the word like it might morph into something else. Something less absurd. I hadn't misheard. I hadn't misunderstood. She said Chicago. She booked a flight to Chicago. I saw the confirmation. I helped her pack. I even reminded her about the weather forecast in Chicago. Miami? Where the hell did that come from? And then, because the universe loves kicking you when you're on one knee. My son asked if we were going to go find Mommy now. I told them to sit on a bench. I walked across the lobby and dialed her again. Voicemail. This time I left a message. "We're in Chicago, Danielle. The kids and I flew in to surprise you. They wanted to see their mom. You told me you'd be here. What the hell is going on?" I hung up. I stood there for a full minute, phone in my hand, pulse somewhere between boiling and breaking. Then I called her assistant one more time and asked, directly this time, "Why is she in Miami?" She waited. Then typed, she said she needed a break. Said not to tell you. I don't know what happened to my legs right then, but it felt like the floor tilted. Everything I thought was solid suddenly had cracks. Lies hiding in plain sight. I asked her, "A break from what?" No response. I looked at my kids. My daughter was braiding her doll's hair. My son was kicking invisible monsters on the bench. And I realized, she didn't just lie to me. She didn't just leave. She disappeared from us. And I was about to find out why. I booked the next flight to Miami without telling the kids anything more than, "We're going to surprise Mom again." She changed hotels last minute. My daughter clapped her hands. My son asked if there'd be a pool. I smiled like my skin wasn't crawling. The flight wasn't long, but every second stretched like it was fighting me. I stared at the back of the seat in front of me and tried not to let my thoughts chew themselves alive. What was she doing in Miami? Who was she with? Why lie? And most of all, what kind of person lies to their own children about where they are? Her phone stayed off. I called 3 more times before we landed. Nothing. My fingers ached from gripping it too tight. Once we touched down, I bribed the kids with ice cream and cartoons at the airport lounge and stepped away to call her assistant again. I didn't say hello this time. Where is she staying? There was a pause. Then, the shoreline, room 517. I didn't ask how she knew. I didn't ask why she was giving it up now. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. I didn't care. I picked up the kids and told them we were going to a new hotel. They were tired. They didn't ask questions. They just followed me. The shoreline was one of those boutique beachfront places with glass everywhere and staff that looked like they walked out of a fitness magazine. It reeked of couples-only packages and curated romance. I knew before I even stepped inside. I told the front desk I was here to meet someone and asked for a keycard to room 517. I said she was expecting me, smiling like I belonged. They didn't even blink. Gave me the card. Just like that. Elevator. 5th floor. Kids in tow. My son humming. My daughter asking if mommy would be surprised again. God, I wish I could burn that moment out of my memory. I told them to wait in the hallway, right outside the elevator. I knelt down and said I'd knock first to see if she was dressed and ready. They giggled like it was a game. I walked to 517, keycard trembling in my hand. I knocked once. No answer. I swiped the card. Clicked. The door swung open. There were 2 glasses on the counter. One had lipstick. The other didn't. A suitcase I didn't recognize lay open on the couch. Men's clothes inside. Her shoes were scattered around the bed, tossed. Not arranged like usual. Her laptop was charging next to a half-eaten fruit tray. And from the bathroom, behind a half-closed door, I heard a laugh. A man's. Then her voice. Familiar. Soft. Giggling. I didn't walk in. I didn't scream. I just stepped back. Out into the hallway. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped the card. My kids were sitting cross-legged on the carpet, playing a game with their fingers. I crouched beside them and whispered, "Change of plans. Mommy's not here?" Ellie asked. "No," I said, forcing my voice steady. "She's out. We'll go get dinner and come back later." I didn't know where we were going. I didn't care. But we weren't staying in that hotel. We weren't pretending everything was normal. I booked another room 2 streets over. Told the kids mommy had an emergency meeting. I let them watch cartoons until they fell asleep, curled up under crisp white sheets with their cheeks pressed together. I sat by the window and stared at the dark ocean. Then my phone buzzed. A message. From her. 3 words. "Why are you here?" That was it. Not "Where are the kids?" Not "Are you okay?" Not "Oh my God. I'm so happy to see you." Just, "Why are you here?" I stared at it for 5 full minutes before I replied. "You lied." Another buzz. "This isn't what you think." No apology. No panic. No remorse. I didn't answer. I closed the curtains, sat down, and started planning what would happen next. I didn't sleep. I sat in that silent hotel room, listening to the quiet breaths of my kids, the ticking of the thermostat, the hum of the mini fridge, and the storm in my own chest. I couldn't stop replaying the voice I heard behind that bathroom door. The laughter, the casual comfort of her in that space, so effortlessly herself, like this was normal. I kept staring at her message. "This isn't what you think." I wanted to throw the phone, but I didn't, because part of me wanted her to explain. Not to forgive, no, that bridge was burning, but because I needed to understand what kind of person smiles at her husband in the morning, kisses her daughter's forehead, and then flies to another city to spend days pretending the people who love her most don't exist. By 6 a.m. I'd had enough of silence. I sent a message, "You have 2 hours. Meet me alone. Lobby of the shoreline." No excuses. No response. I dressed the kids, grabbed them breakfast from the cafe downstairs, and told them we'd go to the beach later. I left them in the care of a hotel sitter. I paid extra to keep them busy and happy. She seemed kind. I gave her a big tip up front. Told her they'd had a long trip. That their mom was working. Then I walked to the shoreline. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I was ready to leave when I saw her. She strolled in through the side entrance like she just finished yoga. Sunglasses over her face. Messy ponytail. Pretending she didn't see me. But she did. Her whole body tensed for a second, just a flicker, and then she kept walking like I wasn't even there. I stood up and blocked her path. She pulled the sunglasses down halfway. "Jake." That was all she said. No shock. No guilt. Just my name. Flat and bored like a hotel receptionist calling a guest overdue for checkout. "We need to talk," I said, barely containing the disgust in my throat. "I have somewhere to be," she replied, trying to sidestep. I stepped in front of her again. "Danielle, sit. Now." She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. We sat across from each other. She slouched back in her chair like a teenager being lectured at school. "Who is he?" I asked. She crossed her arms. "It's not what you think." "No," I said, leaning forward. "Because what I think is that you lied about going to Chicago, came to Miami with another man, checked into a beachfront hotel, and laughed in his arms while your children flew across the country to surprise you." Her jaw tightened for the first time. I pressed. "You didn't think for 1 second that your daughter would be crushed? That your son would think it was his fault you weren't there?" She looked away. Said nothing. "I saw the glasses," I continued. "I heard the voice. I opened the door." "I know." She finally met my eyes. "So what do you want? A confession? You want me to cry? Grovel? You ambushed me in another city. You went through my stuff. That's creepy, Jake." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she'd somehow twisted it to me being the problem. "You've been cheating on me. I've been escaping from you," she snapped, suddenly leaning forward. Her voice was sharp now. "Cold. You don't listen. You don't see me. You play the perfect dad, the perfect husband, but at home you're a ghost. I needed a break. I deserved it. By sneaking around behind my back?" I asked. "You wouldn't have let me go if I told the truth." "You're damn right I wouldn't have." "Exactly." There was no remorse. Not even an attempt at fake tears. Just this calculated stillness, like she'd already decided she wasn't sorry. Like she'd rehearsed every word of this in her head and didn't expect consequences. "And the kids?" I asked. "Do they deserve this too?" She hesitated. Not because she didn't have an answer, but because the answer was too ugly to say out loud. "I need space," she said. "I don't want to talk about the kids. Not with you. Not now." My whole world contracted in that sentence. "I'm filing," I said. She blinked. "What?" "You heard me. When we get home, I'm filing. You're not the person I married, and I'm done pretending you are. You lied to me. You abandoned your kids. You humiliated all of us. And I'm done." She stood, tossed her sunglasses back on. "You think you're the good guy, Jake," she said quietly. "But good guys don't ambush their wives. They don't play the victim while ignoring everything they failed to give." Then she walked away. Just like that. No apology. No emotion. Like I was a burden she was finally glad to be rid of. And for the first time since it all began, I didn't feel hurt. I felt disgusted. Empowered. And ready to end this game on my terms. I didn't go back to the room right away. I walked. Just wandered the strip of sand where the waves barely whispered against the shore, trying to bleed some of the poison out of my bloodstream. But it wouldn't leave. It clung to my ribs like it had been there longer than I realized. I replayed every second of our last year together like it had been edited without my permission, every late meeting, every tired smile, every night she turned away in bed. She was gone long before Miami. She didn't slip. She chose. And that choice wasn't me. I got back to the hotel and found Ellie curled into the sitter's lap, laughing at some cartoon with talking animals. Mason had built a fortress of pillows and was defending it with an empty Pringles can like it was a sword. I watched them for a second, just a second, before I had to step into the bathroom and sit on the closed toilet, fists clenched, jaw tight. I couldn't break. Not yet. Not in front of them. After they fell asleep, I called my lawyer. Yes, I had one. I'd never had to use him for anything more serious than reviewing a lease agreement, but now I needed him to do something bigger. I didn't mince words. She's cheating. Lied about where she was. I have proof she abandoned the kids during her trip. He didn't sound surprised. He just said, document everything. Every message. Every change of plans. If you want custody, you need a timeline and you need to stay clean. No yelling. No scenes. Too late for the scenes. I messaged Danielle. We'll be flying back tomorrow. I'll tell the kids you're staying for work. She replied instantly, good. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Harder? This woman watched her children show up in another city to surprise her and didn't even ask if they cried when they didn't see her. Didn't ask what they ate or where we stayed or if they were okay. She asked me not to make it harder. I didn't reply. At the airport the next morning, Mason asked if Mommy was going to fly back with us. I told him she had to work longer. He nodded but didn't ask why. He didn't need to. He'd seen her face in the lobby when we were leaving. She didn't even hug him. She waved. Like a neighbor. Like we were someone else's kids. On the plane, Ellie curled into me and whispered, did Mommy forget about us? I couldn't answer. My throat locked up. When we got home, I didn't unpack. I sat on the living room floor with their backpacks still full of souvenirs they never got to give. I pulled out the little photo Mason had drawn on the plane, stick figures of us holding hands at the beach with his name written in shaky pencil under a smiley sun. He'd drawn 4 people. And I realized something cruel. He still believed we were a family. She destroyed that in Miami. But he didn't know it yet. And it would be me who'd have to tell him. But not today. Today, I had to shift. I had to move into survival mode. I started a folder. Printed screenshots. Saved every voicemail. Backed up everything to a hard drive. I was going to take this all the way. Not to hurt her. Not to win. But to protect the only 2 people she didn't care enough to lie to properly. The next day she called. She didn't say hello. Just, I told him. It took me a second to understand. You told who? The guy. I told him I was married. I stood still. He didn't know? No. I told him I was separated. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was disgusting. So now what? You think that fixes anything? He walked out. I stayed quiet. Now you know, she said. And hung up. No apology. Just an update. She thought that changed something. But all it did was confirm one thing. She wasn't sorry about cheating. She was only sorry she'd been caught. And now? Now I was done being careful. I filed on a Thursday. Not because there's anything poetic about Thursdays, but because I didn't want to wait for a new week to start. I didn't want a Monday divorce or a clean slate Friday. I wanted it done. In motion. Real. The lawyer didn't blink when I walked in. He just nodded and asked, do you want to pursue full custody? I said yes. He said, good. We'll need to prove emotional neglect. Start a written log. Timestamp everything. Already done. The thing about betrayal is it sharpens you. You don't walk through fire and come out soft. You come out scorched, restructured. I wasn't interested in revenge. But justice? Yeah. I was all in. Danielle, or whatever she'd become, didn't contact the kids once in the 4 days after we got home. No calls. No check-ins. Not even a text to Mason, whose birthday was coming up in 2 weeks. She didn't ask how Ellie's cold was doing. Nothing. It was like she hit a switch. Vanished from their lives. I didn't shield them from it. I didn't lie for her anymore. When Ellie asked if Mommy was coming home soon, I told her Mommy's figuring some things out. We're going to be okay. When Mason asked if she was still mad at me, I said, this isn't about me. Grown-ups sometimes make bad choices. But I'm here. Always. He didn't speak after that. Just nodded and went back to his sketch pad. I didn't hear from Danielle again until Saturday night. I was making grilled cheese for the kids, one of those small, still moments that shouldn't be important but suddenly felt massive, and my phone buzzed with her name. She said she wanted to talk. I told her it had to be in person. No texts. No phone games. If she had something to say, she could come say it. She showed up 20 minutes later. No knock. Just let herself in with the key she still had. She looked different. Not sad. Not frantic. Almost smug. Like she'd made peace with herself and whatever damage she left behind was no longer her problem. She didn't even ask where the kids were. They're asleep, I said before she could fake the question. She stepped into the kitchen like it still belonged to her. Leaned against the fridge. Folded her arms. So you filed? I did. And you think you're going to get full custody? She asked, like the concept was absurd. I don't think, I said calmly. I know. She smiled. Actually smiled. You really think the courts are going to side with a man? I stared at her. You lied about your location. Took a trip with another man. Ignored your children. Then tried to spin it like I was overreacting. You didn't just burn the bridge, you detonated the whole coastline. She laughed. Oh, Jake. You really think playing the victim is going to get you anywhere? This isn't some TV drama. You don't get points for being blindsided. I'm not here for points, I said. I'm here for them. She leaned in, voice dropping. You can't erase me from their lives. No matter how betrayed you feel. No matter how clean your case is. I'm their mother. Then act like one. That shut her up. For 2 seconds. Then she said, you think you're so noble. But you don't see it, do you? You're boring, Jake. You were always predictable. Safe. And eventually, safe starts to feel like suffocating. I stood there, spatula still in my hand, hearing the words she wanted to hurt me. Not just explain. Wound. You didn't just cheat on me, I said quietly. You infected the whole foundation of this family. And now you're acting like your unhappiness gave you permission to become a stranger. Like I was supposed to catch you mid-fall and apologize for not saving you from yourself. She looked at me for a long moment, then said, you were never going to win, Jake. You just don't have what it takes to keep someone like me. And there it was. That one sentence. Not an apology. Not a plea. Just ego and venom dressed up like wisdom. She walked to the door. Didn't look back. Not once. And for the first time I didn't want her to. Because I finally understood what kind of person I'd been married to. And now I was free. The Monday after she left, I received a neatly typed letter in the mail. No return address, no handwriting, just one sheet of paper sealed like it meant something. It was from her attorney. She was contesting full custody. The letter used phrases like shared parental responsibility, best interests of the children, and maintaining a maternal bond. It was all clinical, sharp-edged legal language, nothing personal. Nothing human. But it screamed one thing loud and clear: she wasn't going down quietly. She wanted them. Not because she missed them. Not because she was ready to be their mother again. But because if I had them, it meant she'd lost. And Danielle didn't lose. She didn't just walk away from a mirror without making sure it reflected exactly what she wanted to see. I read the letter twice, then shoved it back into the envelope and dropped it in the drawer with everything else: photos, receipts, texts. It was getting thick. I took Mason to soccer that night. He barely said a word in the car. Just stared out the window, clutching his cleats in his lap like they were made of glass. I asked if he was okay. He shrugged. You know you can talk to me, right? Another shrug. When we got to the field, he didn't get out. I looked at him. Talk to me, buddy. He finally turned. Why did she leave? And there it was. I had rehearsed this question in my head for days, tried to sculpt the perfect answer. And none of it was enough. None of it could shrink that kind of hurt into something simple and digestible for a 10-year-old. She's going through something, I said slowly. She made some choices that hurt us. But none of it is your fault. He nodded, but I could see in his eyes that it didn't land. Because no kid believes they're not part of the fallout when a parent disappears. She didn't even say bye, he whispered. I know. That night, after I put him to bed, I called Danielle. She answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting. I got the letter. Good, she said. You really want to drag the kids through court? She didn't even flinch. They deserve both parents. You haven't called them. You haven't even tried to see them. I'm giving them space. I didn't want to confuse them. Right, I said. Because abandoning your family wasn't confusing at all. Her tone turned brittle. I didn't abandon anyone. I took time for myself. And now I want to fix things. You don't fix things by playing lawyer games and pretending you're present. I'm their mother, Jake. And I'm the one they cry to when they don't understand why you disappeared. She went quiet. Then, softer, I made mistakes. There it was. The crack. The first one. But I didn't bite. Mistakes are accidents. You made decisions. Over and over. I can still be a good mom. Then prove it. Show up. Apologize. Earn their trust back. But don't think you can waltz in, wave a custody claim, and everything resets. Another pause. Then she said, I want a week with them. I felt my pulse spike. Absolutely not. Why not? Because they don't even know where they stand with you. You think you can scoop them up like pets after vanishing? Mason can barely look at his own drawings without tearing them up. Ellie started sleeping in my bed again. Her voice broke a little. I didn't know that. Because you didn't ask. She didn't reply. I sighed, then gave her a line she wasn't expecting. Start with one day. Supervised. You meet them somewhere public. I'll be there too, but I'll keep my distance. You talk to them. See how they react. You're treating me like a threat. No, I said coldly. I'm treating you like a stranger. And she was. The woman on the phone wasn't the one who once braided Ellie's hair before school or stayed up all night with Mason when he had the flu. That version was gone. This one was calculating, cornered, and trying to claw back something she threw away. But I'd let her try. Not for her. For them, the meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at a neutral spot, a quiet park halfway between our house and the place she was renting. She didn't ask to come to the house. Didn't ask to pick them up herself. She just agreed to the terms like she was negotiating a property line instead of preparing to face her own children. The day felt like a countdown to something I couldn't name. I dressed Mason and Ellie like it was just another park day, even though it felt anything but. Ellie wore the yellow dress Danielle bought her last Easter. Mason put gel in his hair, which he never does, then undid it, then redid it. He didn't say why. We pulled into the parking lot 5 minutes early. Danielle was already there. She sat alone at one of the wooden picnic tables near the playground, sunglasses on, holding a cup of coffee like it was armor. Her posture was too perfect. Her smile too rehearsed. The kids saw her before I said anything. Ellie squealed, "Mommy." She ran. And for a second it hit me harder than any argument or letter or hotel room. That sound. That tiny high-pitched joy. As if nothing had ever happened. Danielle stood, opened her arms, and caught her like a returning soldier. But Mason? He didn't run. He stood next to me, eyes locked on his mother. I could feel him calculating, bracing. He didn't move. You want to go say hi? I asked. He shook his head once. Danielle looked up from Ellie and saw him. Hey, Maze, she called out, voice trembling just a little. He didn't reply. Come here, baby. No, he said. Simple. Flat. She blinked, her smile flickering. Then quickly reassembled. That's okay. Take your time. We walked over. I sat down on a bench not far from them, far enough to give space, close enough to step in if needed. Ellie talked a mile a minute. Everything she'd done in the last week poured out of her like a flood. What she drew. What she watched. What she ate. Who she missed. Danielle smiled and nodded, and to her credit, she didn't interrupt once. But Mason? He sat down only when Ellie pulled him. Arms crossed. Silent. After 15 minutes, Danielle turned to him. Mason, do you want to talk to me? He looked at her like she was a stranger offering candy from a car window. Why did you lie? Her hands froze. He didn't yell it. Didn't cry. He asked it like a math question he already knew the answer to. Danielle opened her mouth. Closed it. Then said, because I didn't know how to say what I was feeling. Mason nodded. That's what people say when they do bad stuff. And my God, I almost teared up. Danielle reached for his hand. He pulled it back. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. You didn't even call, he said. You didn't want to talk to me. She looked like she might break then. But I wasn't rooting for her. I wasn't there to save her. This was her wreckage and she had to climb through it. I made mistakes, she said again. He shook his head. You made choices. Danielle looked at me over his shoulder. Her expression asked for help. I looked away. She stayed another hour. Played with Ellie. Tried gently to joke with Mason. He barely responded. Not cruel, just distant. Like he was watching a play he used to know the lines to. When it was time to go, Ellie clung to her. Can you come home now? Danielle looked at me. I answered for both of us. Not yet. Ellie nodded slowly, like she'd been given that answer before. Mason just walked to the car. Danielle stood there as we drove off, still holding the coffee cup like she'd forgotten it existed. And I thought, this is what consequence looks like. Not drama, not screaming, distance, real earned distance. The kind you don't just cry your way across. The kind that waits. If she wanted to fix anything, she'd need to crawl back. Not to me. The silence after that first meeting wasn't comfortable. It wasn't healing. It was tense, pulsing. Something alive under the surface, waiting to rupture. Danielle didn't reach out the next day. Or the one after. No check-in. No follow-up. No, how are they? It was almost like she needed the applause after her performance at the park and, not getting it, she went backstage and stayed there. But life didn't stop. Ellie kept asking when she'd see Mommy again. Mason stopped asking entirely. He went inward, drawing darker shapes, quieter scenes. I watched him build his own version of control in his room, arranging books and toys by color and size, refusing to let Ellie touch anything out of order. The real damage wasn't loud. It was organized. I got a call from her lawyer that Thursday. She wanted another visit. Unsupervised. I said no. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I said it calmly, clearly. That's not happening. There was a pause, and then the lawyer, this smooth, well-trained voice, asked, "Is there a particular reason why you're refusing?" I told him, "Yes, because my son asked me to." Later that night, Danielle texted me directly. Her, "So this is how it's going to be?" Me, "You made your choices." Her, "I didn't ask for a war, Jake." Me, "Then you shouldn't have detonated the first grenade." She didn't reply. Instead, she went nuclear in another way. She showed up. Friday morning, 7:42 a.m. I was brushing Ellie's hair, half-dressed for work. Mason was pouring cereal. The front door knocked like it meant it. And there she was, in jeans and a blazer, hair done, makeup perfect, but her eyes? Puffy, hollow, like she hadn't slept. The kids froze. Mason spilled the milk. Ellie gasped. "Mommy!" She stepped in before I could stop her. "I just wanted to see them," she said, voice trembling with that performative softness she wore when she needed the upper hand. "You don't get to just show up," I said sharply. "I'm their mother," she snapped back, dropping the softness in a heartbeat. "I don't need permission." "Yes, you do. Now you do." Ellie ran to hug her. Mason stayed behind the counter, not moving. Danielle hugged Ellie, eyes darting toward Mason like he was the test she couldn't pass. "I wanted to come by, maybe take them to breakfast." "No," I said firmly. "That's not happening." Mason looked at me. Danielle crouched. "Mason, sweetheart, I just want to spend time with you." He stared at her like she was holding a net behind her back. No, his voice was steady, unshaken. She blinked like he'd slapped her. Then, to me, "You're turning them against me." "No, I'm just not covering for you anymore." She stood fast, sudden heat in her face. "You think I'm the villain here?" "You abandoned them," I said flatly. Ellie looked between us, confused, scared. Danielle turned back to her. "Do you want to go with Mommy, baby?" Ellie hesitated, and in that hesitation was everything. Everything Danielle hadn't realized she'd broken. "I want to stay here today," Ellie whispered. That was it. The unraveling. Danielle's face dropped. No fight. No scream. Just the stunned, cracking silence. She stood in the doorway, looked at me, and said, "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "No. But I'm not rescuing you from it either." She didn't slam the door. She just left. And for the first time since Miami, I felt the smallest breath of peace. Not victory. Just clarity. Because she wasn't just losing custody of the kids. She was losing the version of herself they used to believe in. And that loss was hers to carry now. There's something about watching someone fall from the pedestal they built for themselves. It's not satisfying the way you imagine revenge is. It's quieter. Colder. You don't cheer. You just witness. The Monday after she showed up unannounced, her attorney filed a motion to force a scheduled custody evaluation. Standard move. Legal posturing. I expected it. But what I didn't expect, what hit like a gut punch, was what came with it. A personal declaration. Handwritten. From Danielle. In it, she claimed I was emotionally manipulative, that I'd weaponized the children against her, that my parenting was obsessive and rigid, and that I stifled her independence throughout our marriage. I sat at the kitchen table, reading every word with my lawyer beside me. He watched my hands tighten around the paper, but I didn't flinch. Not on the outside. Inside? I was on fire. She painted herself as the one who escaped. As if the lie, the trip, the man in the hotel, all of it had been some act of freedom. She made herself the victim. Again. And this time, she was dragging our kids into the narrative like they were pawns in her redemption arc. I want to respond, I told my lawyer. Legally or personally? Both. He nodded. Keep it fact-based. Let the evidence speak louder than emotion. But how do you not speak with emotion when your own children are being used as leverage in someone else's lie? That night, I wrote a statement of my own. I didn't mention her cheating. I didn't even need to. I listed every missed call, every ignored message, every date she could have shown up and didn't. I included copies of her texts, cold, careless, transactional. I attached photos Mason had drawn, timelines of when Ellie started asking if mommy was busy again. I wrote one sentence that I read 3 times before printing. My goal is not to erase their mother, it's to protect them from the fallout of her absence and her refusal to acknowledge it. And that was the truth. I didn't want to win. I wanted peace. I wanted consistency for Mason and Ellie. Mornings that didn't start with questions I couldn't answer. Nights that didn't end with one of them whispering, "Will she come back?" in the dark. I sent the declaration to my lawyer. I went to bed. The next day, Mason didn't want to go to school. Said he felt sick. But I knew that look. It wasn't stomach trouble. It was heart trouble. So I stayed home with him. We played video games. Ate waffles. Took the dog to the park. I didn't push him to talk. But on the walk home, he finally did. "Does she love us?" he asked quietly. I stopped walking. He didn't look at me. Just kept his eyes on the pavement. "Yes," I said. "But love isn't always enough." He was quiet for a long time. Then, with terrifying honesty, "I don't think I love her the same anymore." I didn't correct him. I didn't try to fix it. Because he wasn't wrong. Love, once shaken, doesn't snap back like rubber. Tears. And even when you stitch it up, it never looks the same. That night, Ellie drew a picture of our house. 3 stick figures in front. Me, Mason, herself. She didn't include Danielle. And for the first time, I didn't remind her to. I just held her close. Because I finally understood something. This wasn't just a custody battle. It was the slow, painful process of watching my children learn the truth on their own. And somehow, still helping them come out whole. Final hearing. 3 months after Miami. 11 weeks after her sudden reappearance at our door. 32 days since she tried to rewrite our entire history in a 6-page legal document. We sat on opposite ends of the courtroom. Her side empty, just her and her lawyer, sharp and black, still clinging to the image of control. My side was different, me, my lawyer, and my sister who'd stepped in for every forgotten ballet recital, every last-minute pickup Danielle never showed for. She wasn't just a witness. She was proof. Danielle didn't look at me. Not once. Not when they said my full name. Not when the judge reviewed the files. Not even when they read part of her statement out loud and the courtroom air turned icy. They read mine, too. But I'd written it for the kids. Not for revenge. Not to win. But to show I hadn't lied. Not once. Evidence laid out like bones in a grave. The texts. The missed calls. The timeline. Her trip. Her silence. My custody journal, every playdate, school drop-off, tear wiped at 2 a.m. because Ellie had another dream where mommy was waving goodbye from a plane. I didn't flinch through any of it. But Danielle did. When the judge asked about her whereabouts during the surprise trip to Chicago, she stammered. When asked why she didn't respond to the children's attempts to reach her, she said, "I needed to process things." The judge tilted her head. "At the expense of your children's emotional security?" Silence. Danielle's lawyer jumped in. Objections. Rewordings. A desperate rearrangement of reality. But the air had shifted. Everyone in the room could smell the truth. And the truth didn't need to scream. It just stood. By the end, the judge didn't grandstand. She didn't sermonize. She simply issued her ruling with a voice clear as glass. Primary physical custody granted to the father. Supervised visitation for the mother. Reevaluation in 6 months. Contingent on parental counseling and consistent contact. Danielle didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just folded. Like someone who'd played the last card and watched it blow away in the wind. Outside the courthouse, she approached me. Alone. The first time since the park. "I didn't think you'd go through with it," she said. I looked at her, really looked. Not the person I'd loved. Not the image I'd fought for. But the stranger who'd slowly dismantled our family with one lie at a time. You stopped being someone I could protect, I said. And I won't let that happen to them. She opened her mouth, then closed it. And walked away. Just like Miami. Just like that hotel door. But this time, it didn't ache. It didn't rip. It just ended. I picked up the kids that night and told them we were getting pizza. Mason asked if Mommy would join. I said not today. He nodded. Ellie asked if she could invite her aunt to her recital. I said absolutely. And as we sat around the table eating too much, laughing too loud, watching cheese stretch between slices like a contest, I realized something. The family she abandoned? We didn't collapse. We didn't wait. We rebuilt. And now, the advice I'd give to anyone sitting in the storm I once drowned in? Pay attention to the quiet lies. The excuses that smile. The days that feel slightly off. Don't doubt your gut. And when someone shows you who they are really shows you, don't try to repaint it. Don't try to save them. Save yourself. And if you've got little ones watching, show them what love looks like when it doesn't give up. Not on them. Not on truth. Not on you.